Enjoying all that Toxic Radio has to offer? Well, make sure you like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Be the first to find out about ticket giveaways, amazing guests, awesome contests, and Toxic Radio events. Just search Toxic Radio Live, all one word, and press that little button. Every time you do, someone here at Toxic Radio will get their wings. Yay! Well, not really. Aww. But we will get a warm, fuzzy feeling in our tummies. But then again, that just might be the beer. Anyway, like and follow us, and we will see you out there on the interwebs.
Time to whip out your Christmas balls.
Oh my god.
But Toxic Radio's Kick-Ass Christmas. All December long, nothing but rockin' Christmas tunes. Jingle bells, jingle bells. Not the same old boring Christmas songs over and over again.
Better watch out, better not cry.
It's a kick-ass Christmas.
Santa Claus is coming to
Only on Toxic Radio.
All right, everybody, it's Christmas. Let's party.
Don't play it safe. Play it toxic. Ho, 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 bitches. Hey, buddy.
Rah.
Hey, man, that's a sweet heavy metal happy hour t-shirt. Where'd you pick that up?
Thanks, dude. I got it at the Toxic Radio shop.
Toxic Radio has a shop?
Yeah, dude. It's in the app or online at toxicradio.net.
That is sweet.
Yeah, and I also got a rockin' Toxic Radio hoodie and a Red Band Underground shirt. Dude, I'm gonna look so rockin' at the party tomorrow.
Well, I think you look pretty now.
Oh, wait, what?
The Toxic Radio shop is a place to get all your Toxic Radio gear. Shirts, hoodies, stickers. Find it at toxicradio.net or on the app. Don't buy it safe. Buy it toxic. Hey, where you going, man?
Hungry for Hope Nation, your host here, Donnie Hart. And we got a great guest live in the studio from the Toxic Radio, brand new, beautiful studio we were just talking about. We were saying how we went from small to big, and we're here, and I'm joined by our guest, Megan. Megan, you there?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Megan Cohen, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Thanks for coming, I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I've been seeing your face like every day I turn on the news, all over the news with all the stuff you're doing and all that amazing stuff. But like I said, we can't get to that amazing stuff until we go through the stuff that got you there. We all have a story of why we went through what we went through. The stuff you're doing is amazing now. But I want to know more about you, Megan. How was it growing up? What led you to all this?
Growing up, like I can't really say that things were horrible. I can definitely say that I had a little bit of a chaotic childhood. So I think that definitely played a part. So I kind of realized early on that alcohol would numb like the things that I was going through. I struggled with mental health, depression, self-esteem issues. When I started drinking, like that kind of all got quiet, and I felt like I fit in, and then that was the start of it, and it progressed from there.
So your addiction started with drinking before drugs, you'd say?
Definitely. I wouldn't say that like I saw the consequences when I was just drinking, but that was kind of like my segue into like the life that I started to lead with like the people that I was hanging out with, and then when I found like drugs, things just changed. That made it like where alcohol kind of started quieting things for me. When I was on drugs, it was just like I just didn't care about anything.
Now, when did you first get into drugs? I'm sure the alcohol started when you were younger. When did the drugs become a picture in your life? So
drugs didn't start for me until after I graduated high school. Like I said, I drank a lot throughout high school. I partied a lot. But it was actually, I want to say the summer I graduated was when I started using. And it was more just like a curiosity thing. Like I was wondering, I dated somebody that was addicted to Percocet, and I was like, what is so great about this? Like, doesn't he love me? Why can't he stop? And, it sounds so ridiculous, but that was like kind of where the curiosity came from, where I was like, what is so great about this? And where like most people might think that would keep you away from something, seeing that in someone else, like, curiosity got the best of me. I thought, like, let me just try this. And I tried it, and I didn't stop. And it just progressed from there.
So at the time, seeing somebody you love struggle with it, I know we think, like, why can't this person stop it? Like, people think, oh, he must not love me, relationships, family members. I feel like a lot of times people don't know, and it's no knock on them, but if nobody's gone through something, how are they supposed to know,
Right.
If I never played football, how am I going to show you to throw a pass,
Right.
That's just my analogy.
Well, I definitely learned.
You learned to throw that pass.
I definitely figured out what it was, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sure it was horrible for you at that time, not realizing. Then I'm sure it didn't take too long before you realize how the depths of this thing can take you,
Yeah, I actually, I had no idea. Like, I went from just doing it here and there, like a couple days in between. And then next thing I knew, I was doing it every day. And like, I was so naive that I still had no idea that I was addicted. And I still thought that I was too smart because, like, I've seen what it does to other people. And like, why would I do that to myself? So kind of like, separating myself from other people and thinking that like I was smarter than like addiction. And next thing I knew, I remember trying to stop and getting sick. And one of my friends actually telling me, you're withdrawing. And then I was like, no, there's no way. And then I got high again and the sickness went away and, here we are. So.
It's crazy. I was sharing a story about my withdrawal. The first time it was through, I got in a real bad car accident. Doctors had given me Percocet. I didn't really know much about them. And I remember it was like my senior year of high school and I'm out of school for a couple months because I'm bad and I'm back. I got a wheelchair and I'm like shaking. I couldn't sleep the night before and I'm telling my principal. He's like, are you on drugs? I'm like, I don't do drugs. I play football. What are you talking about?
What do you mean?
He's like, I think you're withdrawn. He's like, did they give you something? I was like, yeah, they gave me Percocet. And they stopped giving them to me. He's like, you're withdrawn. I was like, what's that? I knew nothing about it. Like doctors, not to blame doctors, but I'm going to blame doctors. They give people these things that they don't tell them. Some doctors and, young kids, they don't know. You see so many things start like that.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things I always say, like, because there was so many early signs that, like, I had addictive behaviors, but I had no idea. Like, we had the education as far as, like, if you take this drug, this is what it's going to do to your brain. And, like, yeah, stuff like that. But it's like, I had no idea, like, all of these early signs, like, even how defiant I was when it came to authority or, like, like the insecurities that I felt, like so many different things that looking back now, I'm like, yeah, that was definitely early warning signs, putting like partying before all of my other priorities. But I had no clue, and I didn't know like that ugly truth that was associated with addiction and where it was going to take me. So I just had no idea what I was getting myself into.
So how was your childhood? Did you come from like a broken home, a good home?
I love my parents dearly, but they would, also say that I came from a broken home. Like I said, it was very chaotic. A lot of drama. It was crazy.
Yeah, you see some people. First of all, addiction can. We know people say it can. I've seen people come from great homes, bad homes. Yeah. Trauma can get to you. Negative things can get to you. Drugs can get to you. It don't matter. But you see it a lot from people coming from rough upbringings and broken homes. And right. I feel like sometimes it's just an outlet for you to get out of that.
It definitely was, and for, like I said, for me, it was early on, like when I first started drinking, that realization that I didn't care about what was going on at home and I didn't care about like the insecurities that I felt as a result from things going on at home or even just, whatever was going on with me. It just kind of silenced all of that. So it became my solution until obviously it wasn't.
So you get out of high school. Where did you grow up at? Over in Pennsylvania, right? Bucks County? Or?
Yeah, Bucks County, Warrington.
All right, so you get out of Warrington. You're out of high school, and how long did it take for this to really progress? You didn't really do drugs in high school. You said did it come?
It was so.
Take us down that road.
It was really quick. It was the summer of when I graduated that I first started with Perks, and it just it progressed really quickly. Like the Perks got expensive, and then it went from me like being like having money to like then I don't. So I think like it's this great idea to start selling drugs and heroin at that because I thought I was too smart to ever like actually touch the heroin. And then that lasted like not even I think 2 weeks before I started using heroin. And it just continued from there. And I think I caught my first case within like 6 months of actually like starting to actively use drugs, and then like too short after that. So it was 3 cases all like wrapped together the first time I went to court as
Criminal
an adult.
cases.
Yes.
Those people don't know.
I know.
Trust me, I
criminal
know.
cases.
Sometimes we don't realize you're talking
Yeah.
like another lingo.
I know. I actually, that happened to me recently where I said charges and people were like, what do you mean charges?
Yeah. See, like my jacket, and people don't know.
Yeah,
you
I
got
have
a
no
jacket?
idea.
What do you,
What
not
do you
that
mean?
cold, is it?
Right.
Yeah, this is like crazy world. Even once you incarcerate it, and you're in a whole different world of people from all over, people from low, high, everything in between. It's a whole new world, and you spent many years trapped in that cycle of addiction and institutions, and you said you went to treatment 71 times, I think.
71 times. I didn't complete all of those times. I'm a big runner. So when
Track?
right, whenever things would start kind of like if it was starting to go into trauma that I had, I would leave. If it was the sickness was too bad from withdrawal, I would leave. So I've only completed 6 or 7 treatment centers, and the rest I left against medical advice. So within like the first week to first 2 weeks, I would leave.
So you said something good, that the trauma, when that came up, you would leave. I feel like I always say to people, that's like the biggest, my story, at least I can only speak of my story. When you take these like drugs or anything you do, in my case, I was doing it to mask, other trauma that happened in my life, other problems.
Right.
So once you take these things out, now you got to face your problems. And unless you're in the right spot to do that, you don't want to do it. I think that's the hardest thing, like just facing your problems, if it's mental health, whatever,
It definitely is. And then like when we used to cover that, at least in my experience, instead of actually peeling back those layers and dealing with the things that I was going through, I would run from that and I would use, but then like the situations I'm putting myself in because I'm adding more trauma to it. So then the next time around, it's even harder. So, it's
just a cycle.
It's a cycle. It's a crazy cycle.
And I feel like I've seen people like get sober and they're able to do it, but you can tell it's gonna end bad because they never really took care of the problems, the causes that caused them. They look great and you could tell, but sometimes you just have that feeling that deep down they never took care. I know for me, until you really get to the root of them problems, whatever it is, trauma, like we said, whatever your why is, everybody usually has a reason that led them down that road. Unless you get to that, you really can't fix that. When did you notice treatment started working? Was it working at all?
So it wasn't until the last time that because for so long, even though it sounds ridiculous, because I thought that since I was in so many treatment centers, I had all the answers, right? Like I knew everything that they were going to tell me, and, it was pointless or whatever. And the reality is I'd never actually listened. I never engaged. Like I always kind of did my own thing and like wanted to do Megan's program. So this last time around, I was in treatment and I was still acting like that Megan, like I came right from jail, went door to door into treatment, and I was on drug court, and drug court like had a conference call with me, and they're like, you're about, like, what are you doing? You're about to get kicked out and like sent upstate and terminated on drug court. And I realized at that point like I had to do something different because I was doing the same thing that I always had in the past. And then one of the POs was we were just talking, she was like, well, because I broke down and I'm like, I don't think I can do this. Like I've tried so many times and I don't think I can do it. So like, just send me upstate. She was like, but have you really tried? Like, why not give it another shot? You're still here for a reason. And I just heard it differently that time. So I kind of decided I was going to open up my ears. I was going to take all suggestions, and I was going to work on that uncomfortable stuff. And when I found that willingness, because it just comes down to willingness, and I had some faith, I had hope, and, I took that and I ran with it.
Yeah, sometimes it's just from like the most random person. Like it's you can get the same message from 100 people and it might never get through us. But all it takes is that one person for whatever reason, like, and it clicks something, And sometimes it can be a stranger. I know, like mine was somebody I didn't really know that good because I'm just thinking like, why is this person so dedicated to helping me? Like, why do they care about me? Like, your friends will lie to you and tell you you're good and all this shit, and you're thinking like, oh, but it's my aunt or it's my mom or
100%.
my friend. And it was somebody you don't know and they have no reason to be nice to you and just see something in you. You're like, what? Did they see something? Maybe there is something.
Yeah, well, and that's actually a big part of my story was a complete stranger when I was out in Kensington, and the kindness that she showed me. And that was exactly what the experience is. And I always say, like, there's a lot of power because, like you said, we expect our families to be there for us. We expect them to, like, believe in us. But when somebody that doesn't know us sees something and like is drawn to us, like we kind of wonder why. And for me, like it opened my eyes up a little bit more. And that was the last night that I was out in Kensington. It was because of that woman, that stranger, that I called my mom and I was like, hey, you can come get me, and my mom turned me in later that night. So, and that was the start of my journey though. And it started with a total stranger.
Especially, so your addiction took you from Warrington, right? Warrington to the streets of Kensington. For anybody who don't know the streets of Kensington, we talk about them a lot. It's like ground zero. It's just horrible with homelessness and addiction, mental health, just filled. So you were there. When you're there, these people, I think the biggest thing, even when I go down there, is making them people feel like they're not forgotten. So I'm sure you felt forgotten.
I did.
And
looked down on.
Yeah.
People, that's why it meant so much to me. Having anytime that a stranger would show me kindness when I was out there, because of the fact that like I was used to walking into a store and people are looking at me like I'm an insect. Like, all right, what are you gonna steal? Like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? And like in a way, like understandably so, because yes, 9 times out of 10 when I went into a store, I was homeless. I was stealing. But it wasn't a good feeling, and having somebody treat me like an actual person when that wasn't what I was used to, it meant a lot for me, and it's because I've been homeless out in Michigan, I've been homeless in Florida, like, all over the place, and it's the same everywhere. People they look down on you. There's kind people out there, but what the normal is, like when you go out into public, is people just kind of looking at you sideways, like, ew.
Yeah, and the thing I noticed from I got real familiar with doing some of our outreach there and stuff. Sometimes people have ulterior motives and they're not there for the right reason. Especially, I noticed that the females, there's bad people out there and they might be helping you for the wrong reason. And I just feel like it's a lot worse sometimes for the females dealing with it. And you don't know anybody's intentions. It even takes a while when we're out there talking to people until they really, trust you and kind of put that barrier down. But you're probably so used to carnage and trauma in your life and people getting over on you, and it's all you're used to. So even when somebody's there being nice, it's probably hard to even take that as the truth, I'm sure.
Well, it is. And actually, we were just talking about Josh, and part of my story with him, like the night that he had picked me up, I was
Josh Santiago. He was actually on our show from Empowering Cuts. He cuts the homeless people hair. Great guy.
Great guy.
He was part of your story.
He was.
Just by coincidence. I didn't know when I reached out to you.
Yeah, and it was. I remember, so he picked me up. It was raining out, and I was wrapped in a blanket, and I'm walking down.
He was doing Uber, right?
Yeah, he was Uber.
He has Empowering Cuts where he helps the homeless, and he's gone viral for all that stuff. But he also Ubers. I remember he said that on the show.
Yeah, so he was like finishing up. It was in the middle of the night, and like here I am, this clearly addicted to drugs, like face picked apart, super skinny, wrapped in a blanket, walking down the highway. Like, hi, and he pulled over and offered me a ride. And I just remember, like, because what I was used to and what was my norm out there was like, something's going to happen to me. Like, this guy has, he has ulterior motives. Like, I don't know what he actually wants. And like everything in me was telling me like, probably not a good idea to get in the car because that's what I was used to. But I was so cold, and like I wanted to get in a dry car. I wanted to be warm, and I did. And like, that's what Josh is one of. There's a couple people that I talk about, like strangers that when I was out in Kensington, like had a huge impact on my life. They're my angels, and Josh is one of them because the whole time, like he was just so kind to me. He told me about what he did. I was like, why would you let me in your car? Clearly, I'm a drug addict and like I'm homeless. And he was like, yeah, but you're still a human. And there was just so much weight in that, and it wasn't my last night out there. That wasn't my big moment. But it definitely planted a seed for me. So to this day, great guy.
Yeah,
Great guy.
I remember you like saying some of the stories I saw on you, like you didn't care at that point if what was going to happen to you. You didn't know if he was. I'm sure something bigger than us got you to get into that car, but at the point you said you just, you didn't care if you were dying. You're getting in that car regardless, and
right.
Josh isn't like some like old sweet like lady's awesome guy, one of the coolest, but he's like this like tattooed, amazing. You can never judge, somebody by their looks, but he's like a guy where other people might like.
He doesn't look the sweetest.
He's gone through a hell of a life. I love his story so much because, he was on them streets. His mom, his dad went through that. He was in and out of the system, and when he finally found like his career he wanted to do, he took it back to them streets, the cutting the homeless. He could have been a barber and somewhere else and turned his life around, but I think he told us when he got out of jail and he started to learn to cut hair, they took him to the homeless shelter because that's like the lowest to give free haircuts, and something just clicked. I think when you see that, he's seen his parents go through it. He was selling drugs. He put people through that, and when you see that and you can see how you can affect them, I think it was just
he found his purpose.
Yeah, it says something.
He ran with it. It
says something about him, and that he found you. it had to happen for a reason.
Well, and it's crazy too, because after I got sober, I tried to find him, but I couldn't remember his name because I was high that night. So I couldn't remember his name, and like I couldn't remember exactly what he looked like. So I'm like searching people that give homeless people haircuts, like crazy stuff on Google, and like other places.
Was he cutting hair at this time? He was cutting
yeah, because he told me like what he was doing. So, and that was like the one thing that stuck out to me about him, other than like him saying to me like, yeah, but you're still a human. So I remembered that about him, because like I was trying to reconnect with all the people that impacted me while I was out there, and like thank them for what they did and let them know how much it meant to me. And I couldn't find him. And then when I started my nonprofit, the Grace Project, I actually got a message on the Grace Project's page, and they were like, hey, check out what this guy's doing. I think you'll love it, right? And like I started, and I start watching it, and I'm like, at first, because it didn't say what he did right away, it just like was introducing him, and I'm like, this guy looks so familiar. And then in my head, I'm like, no way is it him? And then they start talking about him giving haircuts to the homeless. So I'm like, oh my God, and I message him. And I was just like, hey, messaging you for a couple of reasons. One, like what you do is absolutely amazing. Two, did you pick up a homeless girl on the side of the road a couple of years ago? And I didn't give him any details. And he was like, yeah. And he knew like where he dropped me off and all of that. And, I was like, it was me. And, I was able to thank him and tell him what it meant. We were able to reconnect. And, I have a beautiful relationship with him today. He tells me how proud he is of me all the time. And, it's really cool, and it's been really cool being able to have him back in my life, in a different way now, and let him know like what that means to me, and have him see somebody that's like come out on the other end.
Yeah, I think people don't realize just like something so little, and like I said, it can come from, sometimes it's better even coming from a stranger. I know my story just, it takes one person sometimes. The same person can say the same message, and that one person, like my story actually involves somebody. How I met Josh was through my buddy John. Kid I went to high school with, I talked to maybe once in high school, and just by chance we became friends a couple years later, and I met his mom like once. Little Italian lady, she's from Brooklyn, came up in a little on welfare in Brooklyn. She had that little, spunk about her. I met her once. I don't think I said anything to her. And then fast forward a couple years, I get locked up, and I start getting these letters from her. I'm facing life in prison. I'm in maximum, and I start getting these letters. I'm just like, what is, she's telling me like, God told me, this is your story. And at the time, I didn't know why I was going through what I was going through. Just why me? A lot of pity. And it just took her, and other people had told me, but hearing her, and she wouldn't stop. I threw the letter away. She'd write another one. She'd write poems, and she's like, you're going to get out. You're going to inspire people. I'm going to be there with you. And she was saying all this stuff when I was, at my lowest. And,
right.
And then, I kind of started believing what I had to lose. And,
yeah.
I was with her this weekend. I'm with her every weekend helping people. And it's a lady just sent in my life. Sometimes you don't realize just something, just being positive to people, just.
Right.
You had Josh, you had a couple people, you said, a couple other ladies who helped you. And it's the greatest reward for people, too, just helping people, man. The world's a pretty shitty place, and sometimes, and it's the butterfly effect, I think. I don't know. I'm not that book smart, but if you help somebody, they help somebody.
It's a
and,
ripple effect?
Yeah, the ripple something. She told me, like, everything I do now, I think of Susan sending me these letters. I was like, I can't let her down. Like, I got to do, she said, she's like, you went through these horrible things because God knew you were strong enough, and you were the only person who could make it through that, and other people who can't, now they're sending you back, like they're sending Megan back. They knew you could make it through this horrible streets of Kensington. Let's be honest, a lot of people don't.
Right.
Now for another young lady, anybody, they see it and they can relate to your story, and they're like, Megan made it through, maybe I can. Do you ever feel that? Like what got you? I know you went to the rehabs, but when you first started feeling right away, did you say, oh, I'm clean, I want to go help people? Or
no, not at all. So the night that my mom picked me up in Kensington, the last night that I was out there, I did say to her, because I had asked her to bring out food and like cold water for the people I was out there with, because I was starving, they were starving, and she did. And like I remember saying to her that I was going to go back out there one day and like try to help, but I didn't actually mean it at the time, because I didn't think that I was capable of being sober. So like I was kind of just saying it, but like it wasn't like, it didn't really hold any weight. And then like the way that the Grace Project started, it wasn't like, there was no intentions of starting a nonprofit. Obviously, like I had that draw to help others because, my experience and like what like those strangers did for me, like I would love to recreate that for other people. But I had no idea it would be on the scale that it is now. And I made my mom texted me and she was like, hey, if I wanted to bring food out to Kensington again, like where would I go? I'm like, you're not going out to Kensington without me. Like, absolutely not. So like I made a post on my personal Facebook, and it just kind of took off. And from there, like, the vision grew. You know, I didn't just want to help people that were homeless out in Kensington. You know, I wanted to help people that struggled with hopelessness, you know, not just addiction. And that was just like the dream, you know what I mean? And now, because there's times where it definitely gets discouraging, because it's a lot of work and sometimes people just don't want to receive the help, you know, and I just have to remind myself, like, how long my journey was, you know, and what it did for me, like when people still showed me that kindness regardless of like what my past was. And, you know, I just try to do that for other people. It's really just about recreating the same experience that I had for somebody else.
Yeah, that's like Hungry for Hope started my story. You know, when I was in jail, I lost everything, the mental health, addiction, my brother had died. I lost it all. That hopelessness you feel, it's just, it never got away from me. I always remembered it. And, you know, I wanted people to be that Susan for other people. There wasn't enough people don't have Josh Santiago, Susan Pastores, these other people who helped you. And I feel like somebody who goes through something like you went through, and, you know, the first thing, you run out of a burning fire, what do you think? Like, I want to stay away. I don't want to go back in. That's what the normal, well, you're basically getting out and then saving yourself and turning back around. You're getting the cat, the baby, the neighbor, the dog, everything.
Yeah.
And you know, you're risking yourself. You're going back into something that you know could be the end of you, something that almost took your life. That's the craziest part of addiction. You were so close to that end and you got out of it. You would think, like, you're lucky and stay away. It takes somebody so strong to actually go back into that storm and that fire, whatever you want to call it, and help people. But I'm sure it's helped you a lot. Have you noticed you become a better person helping people through the Grace Project?
Definitely. You know, and a big part of it too, because like you said, it's definitely a risk, you know, because that was my stomping ground. So there's been times in the past where if I have stuff going on and like I'm not in the right state of mind mentally, I won't go out because I'm so, like, our volunteers are absolutely amazing. They're super dedicated. Every single person that comes out with us, like, they genuinely care about everyone out there. So on the weeks I can't be out there, my volunteers are still out there and, like, they're still trying to get people into treatment and they're still giving them food and, you know, talking to them and just trying to, like, make them realize, like, listen, you can do it. You know, your life can be better. So you know, but it's been really cool, and like I've definitely grown in the process, because just like how we said, like, Josh found his purpose, like I found my purpose in this, and it was something that, like, I had no idea that this was going to become like the main like where my life was going to go, you know what I mean? So it's really cool, you know, and I definitely I grow through it. I learn more every single day, and it also, in a way, because I work with so many people and I do want to be able to help as many people as possible, it kind of keeps me grounded and makes me realize I need to continue to work on myself and make sure that, like, I'm in a good mental state and continue to improve myself. So it kind of, like, adds that fuel to my fire.
You ever feel like all them, you know, when we go through these things, like I was telling you, I used to ask why every day. Like, why did I go through this? Why did my brother die? It's not fair. Why me? Why? You ever feel like you look back and now you realize all them things that didn't make sense? You realize you might have went through them because Megan had to go through every single thing. So Joe, anybody, or Jane, anybody can learn. You know, every one of them. One thing didn't happen, you might not be where you're at.
Absolutely.
And you love where you're at. Same with me. I feel like now it all kind of makes sense. When life starts making sense, you had to go through that.
Right. And that's the thing. You know, people ask me if I have regrets, you know, if I would change anything about my life, and I wouldn't change anything that I've done, and I also wouldn't change anything that happened to me, because all of it made me the person that I am today. And like you said, like, when I talk to other people that are, you know, just getting into recovery or they're, you know, going through something, that's kind of the angle that I use, because it's true. Like, listen, you're going through this for a reason, because one day, like, if you make it through to the other side, like, one day you're going to be able to help somebody else. So, you know, it's just, I definitely believe everything happens for a reason. I believe that my life went the direction it went for a reason, and that, like, my journey was as long as it was for a reason. You know, all the trauma that I went through, you know, all the ups and downs, it's definitely, it's led me to where I'm at today, and it's kind of equipped me to be able to do the things that I do.
You talk about regrets. Our one guest, who's one of my favorite, Dwayne Fletcher, he's blowing up. He's really killing it now. He Guns Down, Gloves Up, his nonprofit. He's been jail 40-some times. He was shot, almost killed. Now he helps people. You know, he gives them gloves instead of guns. He trains people. He gives them the lessons. You know, takes these kids literally off the street. Mm-hmm. And he teaches them. He said, it's not a mistake if you learn from it, you know?
Right.
Then it's a lesson.
Right.
And I firmly believe that, you know. things might suck, but we use that, I'd say the greatest thing about your worst moment is you can use your worst moment to fuel your best moment. The same stuff that broke me, is the same stuff I use. It didn't go away. It's still there. My brother's still dead. I still went through all this. So, it's not going to disappear. I don't have a time machine. I don't know if you have one, but
No, I
don't want to borrow it because I'm good. I'm fighting a good fight. But it's still there. And now we just got to use it in like a different way. It's all about how we use stuff. You can have the same people, same thing happen there, but you can say, hey, I'm going to use this to fuel me, then up instead of down. Like in the beginning, my took me down deep, dark path. And the same stuff I use to, inspire me like you're doing.
Right.
And I feel like the big thing is do you notice people, sometimes we got to hear people look like us or went through what we went to, same scars as us, stuff like that. Like they have, professionals are great and everything, but in the beginning I feel like sometimes people might have to hear, somebody who's homeless in Kensington might have to hear from somebody who was homeless in Kensington who's no longer.
Yeah.
It's kind of the blueprint, like, oh, I want to be Megan.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I want to be on Hungry for Hope.
Right. For me, it was like, again, with all of the, the treatment centers that I've been into, like one of the, and part of the reason I'm so transparent with my story, and I don't have any shame in it. Like there's nothing that, there's nothing that I won't talk about is for that reason. Cause I know like I would have, outside speakers would come in and they would talk about a little bit about like what their life was like. And in my head, I would be like, well, you weren't as bad as I am. So that's not helping me at all, and the reality is like I could have just identified with the feelings and realized like that there's hope in that. But the type of addict that I was, like I had to hear about somebody that, was at as low of a low as me to be able to relate, at least in those early stages. It's not like that anymore. I can relate with anyone that's experienced addiction or alcoholism, in any form at any rate. But I think it's definitely for some people, I think it's really important for them to hear like, the full ugly truth and like how low bottom, I was, and the fact that I was able to make it out even after all of those attempts.
Yeah. Like I remember thinking I must be like the only one when I was at my bottom, and like nobody else has gone through that. I'm just the worst person in the world. Nobody's gone through this. Poor me, poor this, poor that. And then I started learning, even that's the greatest thing through the show, bringing people on like your story, because there's somebody who might need to hear your story and realize like, I'm not that fucked up. There's other people who, man, like Megan, Donnie are more fucked up than me, or the same, they can relate to, and they connect, and then they see you doing good things. There's a lot of people I've noticed even from the show, a lot of private messages. People message me and they don't want to be public, and they're like presidents or CEOs of good companies, and they have this like past that like they hide. And sometimes it's your story. Nobody should ever force you to tell it, but sometimes when we hold on to this, I think me and you were talking about it, it can be a heavy burden to carry, hiding our true stuff, who we are. We think society might look down on us. The greatest thing I ever did was be more open, and people, it's probably for the better to people who leave your life, because you don't really need them. They're going to leave you for your past. There's nothing better than somebody who's been knocked down and overcame it and fought back, and one that's like what America is, the great comeback. And I'm sure you learned like so much now that you didn't know back then. So if there's anybody like going through it right now, is there anything you would like to share with them that you didn't know back then that you kind of wish you did?
I just wish that I knew that it was possible. Because for, like I said, for so long, I was stuck in that state of hopelessness. And I didn't think that, people would tell me like, just do what people before you did and what worked for them. And I just didn't buy into that. And I wish that I knew a lot earlier on that if I would have just taken these suggestions and if I was just willing to like put some work into myself, that my life genuinely would be better. Because there was this like huge fear. Well, how am I going to live without drugs? That's boring. You know what I mean? Like, and I went through that for so long, and like not being able to drink, like, how am I going to be able to do that? But like, people were right when they told me that my life was going to be better and like beyond my wildest dreams. So I just wish that I knew that sooner. I wish that I knew that that was like actually a real thing, because I would have put the work in a lot earlier on.
Yeah. It's, I'm sure there's not a day goes by that you regret, this journey you've been on.
Not at all.
Nah, you're having all this great stuff. Was there any one of like the things you really regret, one of your biggest failures, and how have you been able to come to terms with that? Because that's like the hardest thing. We get off drugs or something, we got to face these problems. Like when you were saying that we don't want to, how have you been able to come to terms with some of your biggest failures that
I would say my biggest I don't want to say regret, because again, I don't regret anything that I've done. But what I put my family through, specifically my grandmom, you know, from stealing from my mother to stealing from my grandmother, and like possessions, money, and then like their peace of mind. That was definitely when I got sober, because, you know, my mom's my world, my grandmother's my world. It was hard. And like, I didn't think I was ever going to get past the guilt of what I put them through. But like today, I'm okay with it. I'm okay. Like, I hate that I did it to them, but I'm okay with it, because like, I know that I was sick at the time. I wasn't in the right state of mind. Like, everything that I was doing was out of line with what my morals and values were, because like, that's what addiction is. Like, when we're in active addiction, that's what we do. So all that I can do today is like, I'm the best daughter I can be. I'm the best granddaughter that I can be. I show up for them. I don't do anything to cause them any harm. So I just, you know, I make sure that every day that I'm the best version of me for them, to make it up to them, you know, and I've made my amends to them. You know, so I just do the best that I can to not cause any more damage. But the reality is, guilt is definitely hard to deal with when you're first getting off of drugs and like, you know, getting into recovery. But if you just live to the best of your ability, do what you can to make those things right and make those amends with the people that you hurt, it gets a lot easier. Like, that weight starts to get lifted. So, you know, I have an amazing relationship with my whole family today. You know, it took a little bit. Some of them, like, they didn't talk to me for a while. But today, they're all in my life. And I have a really strong relationship with every single one of them.
And, you know, for anybody listening, just like a little under 3 years, a little over 2 years, whatever you want to call it, almost 2.5 years, I think was the number. You're on the streets in Kensington. Like, I think people really got to see that. How was that? You were homeless out there, correct? In Kensington. I know you were homeless a few, Florida, Michigan. But how was it being a female in Kensington, homeless and addicted, and how was like every day? How did you survive that?
I don't really know. You know, you survive it minute by minute, hour by hour. You know, and it's tough, the things that you go through, especially as an addicted female out there, because you have a target on your back. You know, most people know that you don't have anyone in your life that's looking out for you. They can kind of do whatever they want to you, and they're probably not going to see repercussions for it. You know, and so it was tough. Like I said, I had trauma from a lot of things prior to being homeless out in Kensington, but I got a lot more from being out there. You know, you see a lot of stuff, you experience a lot of things, and it's tough. You know, but I'm just grateful I made it out of there, and that's the goal. Like, you know, getting other people off the streets, because I know how bad it is, and especially like, you know, I know what the females go through, and not saying it's not bad for the males too, because it is. But there's definitely
But the shit is worse for the females.
Yeah,
worse for the females.
yeah. There's definitely an added aspect of shit for the females.
Now, was there, when you were out there, was there any like resources for you? You know, you said Josh and other people helped you. Was there any like resources while you were like in active addiction, homeless out there?
I mean, there was groups that would come out from time to time, you know, to bring food out or whatever. And then there was Prevention Point was actually really helpful for me, because it was in walking distance to, you know, where I was always roaming the streets. And I would go there, get coffee in the mornings. And then when I wanted to call my mom.
Tell us about Prevention Point.
So, I mean, I don't like, they do a lot, but basically like, they're a resource for people to go to, like if they want direction and getting help. You know, they gave me like clean socks, like first aid stuff. So they're just kind of they're there to be a resource, and kind of like what like the street outreach people do, like Grace Project and other ones, they do, but they have like a location for it. You know, so they were really like, they just showed me that they cared. You know, they would look for me, and every single day, like when I would come in, the one specific woman there, I don't remember what her name was, but she would come over to me and ask if I've talked to my mom and ask if I wanted to call her. And she would put me on the phone with her just to check in and be like, hey, I'm alive. When I wanted to get treatment, like she offered to help with that. So that was definitely a good resource to have. And when I called my mom to pick me up the last night that I was out there, I didn't have a phone because I pawned it.
So you're out there, no phone,
so I'm
no
out
money,
there, no phone, nothing.
No credit card, no nothing.
Nothing, just me.
To the wuss.
Yeah, just me. So it's tough because most people that are homeless out there, like, we don't have phones because, like, where are we even going to charge them if we had them? So usually they get pawned, like, within the first week of being on the street. And, that was what it was for me. So having a place to actually be able to walk to and, like, ask for help was definitely good, definitely beneficial for me. But most people, like, they don't even know that it's there, and they don't have access to resources because they have no way to look anything up. So unless you're out there right in front of them, like, hey, what do you need? Let me get you connected. They have no idea where to turn.
Yeah, I know when we brought volunteers over on a K&A on the corner, a lot of the people, like, they ask me when we're, like, cooking food, we bring some grills over there, and they're like, the volunteers, like, well, the female, they want to go to the bathroom. Like, can I go? I was like, there's no bathrooms. They're not going to let you in the stores. They don't let you.
No,
because people overdose in them. I was like,
Yep.
We bring a bunch of trucks and trailers, and you gotta go behind them.
Yep.
We sit there, we protect you, but they're like, and I think they start realizing what they're in, like little things you take for granted, being able to go to the bathroom,
to use a public right.
Or something.
We actually, when we first started going out, some of there's like a Walgreens right on the corner of Kensington and
That's
Allegheny.
where we go. We park right there. We put see a bunch of big trucks there, and we grill it up, and we bring hundreds of bags of food and just bullshit and shoot the shit. And it's like right there.
And that's the thing, you never know that, like, in there, depending on the security guard, sometimes they'll let volunteers use the bathroom, but 9 times out of 10, no.
Yeah, we just go there. We park the trucks up along the black fence that's on the other side, and we just use the trucks, man. And you just gotta, you get to realize what these people are going through.
Oh yeah.
Like one of the listeners just said, they said the main theme they seem is sometimes people have to go to that absolute rock bottom to realize, like, what they can do with their life. Like, they need to go through every punch. Sometimes you got to get to that lowest point.
Yeah, and that's something I'm big on. Like, when I have a lot of family members reach out to me for help with their loved ones, and a lot of times, like, I have to tell them, don't deprive them of their bottom. You can't make somebody want it. Like, they have to hit whatever, everyone's bottom's different. So, like, my spiritual bottom was, like, this last time out in Kensington. Some people, it doesn't have to go that far. But at the end of the day, like, again, it has to come from that individual. So as much as, like, our loved ones want to help us and, like, want to kind of pull us out of it, you have to hit your own personal bottom to actually want it for yourself. And if you don't want it for yourself, it's most likely not going to happen.
Now, was there one thing you did, the 71 treatments you started, that last one, that 71, was there like a moment where you were thinking, like, maybe this is it? Or you got to, after failing so many times, we just kind of get used to it. Was there ever a time where you're like, this is different,
I wouldn't say necessarily that, like, there was a time in that treatment center where I felt like, okay, I got it this time. But that conversation with my PO, that got me to a point where, like, I had this kind of, like, silent agreement with myself that I was going to try every single thing that was recommended to me after I got out of treatment for 90 days. And if I still wanted to get high, then I was going to get high. So I started taking suggestions, and like I said, I found that willingness. I had a little bit of hope, because of the things that, like, led up to me getting there, like, faith was restored. So it was just different. I don't know, like, when my big moment was, but I do remember after I got out of treatment, and, like, sticking true to that and doing everything that was suggested and recommended to me, I got to that point where I was, like, at 90 days and out of treatment, which for me was like 6 months sober because of jail and treatment in between. And I was sitting on the recovery house bed that I was in. And I remember just, like, realizing that I was starting to crave that peace that I was feeling from, like, working a program and, like, working on myself and, like, all of those things that, like, I built those barriers up with. And just realizing I was craving that peace more than I was craving drugs. So I wanted to keep going with it. And I still wasn't sure, like, it wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm dead set that I don't ever want to use again. But I just knew that in that moment, I wanted to keep moving forward instead of backward.
Do you think these people like Josh and other people that you saw towards the end of your journey, do you think seeing these absolute strangers who showed somebody that you would think nobody else, a forgotten person in your mind, somebody homeless, addicted, the worst of the worst in Kensington, do you think seeing them, you think that had anything to do with you? Like, hey,
Yes, 100%. Like I said, that was, Josh definitely planted a seed, and a couple of the other people that I encountered, because again, it gave me, I was at the point where, like, I looked at myself the way that everybody else was looking at me, like an insect, like I was worthless. So having people show me that kindness and remind me, like, you're still a person, it it had an impact, and like it all led up to that last moment with, you know, this woman that stopped me on the streets, and she ended up, she spoke Spanish, so there was this other lady that was translating, and you know, telling me that she was drawn to me and she wanted to know my story. And you know, I was completely honest, and even after telling her, like, yeah, you know, I have felony warrants and I'm on heroin and crack and I robbed my grandmom and this, that, and the other, she wanted to take me in her house and give me food and clean clothes and let me take a shower. And like, I always tell people, I'm like, I don't recommend that. Like, I'm out in Kensington every single week, and you know, I want to do anything I can to help these people, but I don't bring anyone back into my house. So I don't know what she was thinking, but she did it, and that was my big moment. You know, because when I had nothing else, like I did turn to prayer when I was out there, because I didn't have any family, I didn't have friends, like I was just completely alone. And the way that it all happened, it was a direct answer to my prayers, and it was kind of my big moment where I was like, okay, there's hope, you know, there's a bigger plan for me. Let me give this one more shot. And that was when I called my mom. So it definitely, like, without like kind of the lead up of all of those people and all of those things that happened, and then this woman, I don't think I would have ever gotten off the streets. I needed that. I needed that kindness. You know, I needed somebody to show me something that was going to kind of spark things back up for me.
That's amazing. Now you're doing this stuff you talk about out there in Kensington. Tell us more about the Grace Project, because, you know, you got to really hear where the project comes from first. You know, I always tell everybody where Hungry for Hope comes from, my lowest moment. So, you know, after hearing where Grace Project was built, all these people helped you, you know, it kind of gives us a story, I feel like. So I know that my own case, I had to go through a lot of that, and the people who helped me at my lowest is what shaped what I do now. Right. So tell us what you're doing now with Grace Project.
So we started, like I said, it was just, my mom sent me that text, and, you know, that kind of, I made a post, other people wanted to get involved. So it started out with just the Thursday trips out to Kensington, and we would bring out food, first aid, you know, hygiene products, and just kind of try to talk to people and let them know that.
It is on the screen for anybody watching live.
What?
Give a Little Hope program, Grace Project. It's on the screen.
Oh, well, that's the Give a Little Hope program. We're talking about the Kensington outreach right now.
Well, the website.
So yeah, but we started with that, and then the vision just grew. You know, I wanted to do stuff for kids, because kids like face hopelessness for many reasons, and usually they're just victims of circumstance. So that was kind of like where the idea for Give a Little Hope came from. And then we also have our Hope for the Holidays program. So like I said, it's all about hope. And, you know, I realized early on.
Sound like you're hungry for hope.
Right. Hungry for hope.
That's our start, you know, giving hope to the hopelessness. Yeah. That's how we started.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you know what it feels like not to have that, I think
Absolutely.
You're just drawing that to giving it to people.
Definitely. So, you know, we've grown a lot. But that's the main goal, you know, showing people that despite like what their situations are, that there's always hope. You know, there's always beauty in the world, and there's always people that care. So really just recreating my experience for other people.
Now, like these people you're helping, any certain, I'm sure a lot of things you can tell them, any like advice that's good for these people going through this, people listening going through this?
Just, you know, again, like there's hope. There definitely, I mean, there's nothing that you can't get through. You know, it might be uncomfortable, it might be hard, it's going to take a lot of work, but there's always a brighter side if you keep working towards it, and like you keep the faith. You know, it's tough, because I get what it's like to feel like, you know, there's no answer, there's no solution, but there is, you know, and there's somebody out there who's been through whatever situation it is that you're going through. So, you know, reaching out, asking for guidance, asking for help, you know, there's no shame in that, but there's, like I said, there's always a way out. There's always a way out.
Yeah. So you got I'm just trying to put the picture out there for people. So 2.5 years ago, let's say, just throwing a rough number, you're homeless, addicted to drugs in Kensington. Yeah. And now we're here, Hungry for Hope, Toxic Radio, talking about the Grace Project. What else is your life like today from going 2.5 years ago, addicted, homelessness on the streets of Kensington, the worst of the worst, no hope, nothing, 70 rehabs at the time, failed, in and out of jail, suffering with trauma, all this stuff you had to deal with. And now, where's your life at today, 2.5 years, say, later?
My life is beautiful. It blows my mind to think about how much it's changed in honestly such a short period of time. You know, I got back into school probably around like 9 months sober.
I heard you got a 4.0.
I do have a
I heard
4.0.
you're smarter than me.
I do.
I'm street smart.
Right. Well, that used to be my thing, but then I found out like if I apply myself, I can actually be book smart too, which is pretty cool. So I'm in school for business, and I have a career now. So I work full time as an outreach coordinator. I have 2 dogs that are like my whole world.
What kind of dogs?
Pits. They're rescues from Philly.
Rescues.
Yeah. Yeah, both of them are little street dogs. So.
I feel like a lot of people have gone through stuff there. You know, we've done some stuff helping rescue dogs and get them adopted and stuff. That was one of the cool things we've been able to do. But I feel like sometimes I see myself in these like pits.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because it's like the one was just abandoned in a crack house. The other one was starving in McPherson Square, Needle Park. So I look at them like, all right, let's get you off the streets. Like I got out of the streets.
Yeah.
So they're my babies. I don't know. I love them to death. They're annoying. They drive me nuts, but I love them to death. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like I'm in a healthy relationship today that I value. I have my family in my life. My nephew was born shortly after I got out of treatment. And he's like my whole world. I love him so much. And for a while, like, he was I would look at him and kind of see like my new life in him, because he was born so soon after I got out of treatment. And for a while, he was the only part of my bloodline that, didn't see me high until my sister had her baby a little over a week ago.
Congratulations.
Thank
to your
you.
Sister.
Yeah, she's absolutely beautiful. She's so cute. But life is good, and like I'm able to show up and be an amazing aunt, to my nephew, and eventually, like once she's not a baby anymore and can come out, to my niece as well. So, it's just cool. Things are drastically different.
So it's been 2.5 years. It took you years to get to that low point. I know, sometimes it takes years of destroying our life. And then you've been able to rebuild it. Anytime you just like kind of sit down after you're doing something good with Grace Project, or you do a good interview with Hungry for Hope, or whatever it is you're doing, and you sit down and you like kind of get a minute to take it all in. Like I think with Josh like flew out to L.A., Santiago, and he was out there. They brought him out there to help people, and like he said, when he got on that plane ride back home, it kind of all like sunk in, like everything he's been through. Is there any time where you sit down and you realize like this girl who was so broken and so forgotten about and went through so much in life and is where you're at now?
Sometimes I do. It's crazy because with everything that I have going on, like I don't get as much time as I would like to be able to reflect. Things are just moving so quickly, like at this really rapid pace. But when I do get those moments, like there's times where, I'll look at things like our hoodies, like something so simple, and I'm like, oh my God, like how amazing. Like Grace Project started out as like a Facebook post, and then it was just like this idea, and now it's grown into its own thing, like where it's totally separate from me, and like we have so many people that like want to be involved with it. And and I look at like my grades in school and the fact that I'm on
4.0. You can't stop bringing that up. Okay? We get it.
By the way,
we'll have a spelling bee after the show. I don't care.
But looking at stuff like that, or like looking at the fact that I have 2 dogs that like I take care of,
Two rescue dogs.
2 rescue dogs, yeah. And that they're doing good and they're happy. Or my apartment that like I've been able to completely, like I did that myself. So just stuff like that where I would have never imagined it in my wildest dreams. So it's just really cool. And it's definitely like, it's surreal sometimes when I look at all of it. But it's cool. It's my reality now.
So, to get there, it took some people, any people in particular. I know we talked about Josh Santiago. You mentioned somebody else. Anybody in particular, a couple people you want to give some credit to for helping you or giving you that strength when you had none, that hope when you were hopelessness?
Yeah, so definitely my family, because they didn't give up on me. Unfortunately, again, like we just kind of expect that from our family, so it didn't pull me out of anything. But all of those people that I encountered, when I was out in the street, like I said, I've connected with a couple of them, some of them not yet, but they know who they are, and I just don't think I would be here if it weren't for them. I really don't. I think that I needed like that progression up to that last, like that final moment of just people showing me like that there is still good, and like that there is people that do believe in me. So, definitely them, and definitely my family, and especially like my family for taking me back in after everything that I did, like allowing me to be part of the family again. That's a blessing in itself.
I'm sure your rescue dogs are saying the same thing. They're like, thank you. She took me back in after, they're probably, are they in school too? Do they have a
No,
full
not
point?
yet, not yet.
They're learning
Maybe
K9,
one day. If I
K9
could
school.
afford to put my dogs in school, I 100% would.
Well, you let me know. They
need
keep
it.
on doing good. We might have a spot for them on the show. We've had animals on here before.
I'll teach them how to talk.
Yeah, we had dogs in the show. We have Mark Eberly brings his dogs. He's a veteran who trains. He has Paul's Healing Heroes, and he trains dogs to help veterans with PTSD and everything. He's been in here a couple of times. I remember the first time he came in with the dog, and Mike and I didn't realize he was bringing the dog. You don't realize it.
Yeah.
It's this big K9 German Shepherd, and he comes in. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to explain this to everybody?
See, my
then he came
dogs
back with 2 the next time.
They would drive you nuts because they're just so affectionate. So my older dog, she's obviously more calm than the puppy, but she would want to be on your lap, hitting you. The puppy is crazy. He drives me nuts. I love him so much, but he drives me absolutely nuts, and he drives the older dog nuts too because he's just always zooming around, and he's a lot. But they're great.
How'd you
but
feel?
they definitely wouldn't be able to be. And I'm telling you, they would wreck everything.
Yeah, his dogs were trained.
Yeah.
So he said
they're not.
they train these dogs $15,000. They train these dogs.
You should come train my dogs.
Yeah.
They need it.
Yeah. Good luck with that. But I'm sure it feels good. At that point, I didn't be able to take care of yourself, and now you got not 1 but 2 dogs that sound perfect. Is it cool? Just little things like that, being able to take care of the dogs on your own, and knowing you're at that point.
It's crazy. It's just, that's what I mean. Such simple things that to other people might not seem like a big deal. To me, even when I just I go to take my dogs outside, there's sometimes where I just look at them and I look at how happy they are and they're healthy, and in my head I'm just wow, you take care of 2 living things, but that's just I'm very I get stuck in gratitude a lot, and I think that's important for me. Even when I put up my Christmas tree, I remember sitting with my boyfriend and being can't believe I have a Christmas tree, my own Christmas tree, and I decorated it in my apartment. How crazy is that? So yeah, it's just little things like that. They're really cool. I think that people take a lot for granted, and it's really the little things that make life beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes to appreciate things in life, you got to go, I appreciate just, like you said, these little things that we take for granted. We appreciate so much when we go through that, or when we see other people lose that battle, and there's other people who aren't lucky enough to be here. Right. And it definitely makes you appreciate. So all this stuff, if anybody wants to connect with you, we got the graceproject.org.
Not .com.
Not .com, .org. So flip out, you don't say com. .org. The graceproject.org. They brought it up already if anybody's seeing the video. Thegraceproject.org. I had to get the flyer switch. I said .com. Things happen. And anywhere else, anybody can connect with you. We got the .org down. Anybody can connect with the Grace Project. People need help. They want to help. Anything.
Yeah. So we have Facebook and we have Instagram. Facebook is Philadelphia Grace is our tag, and then on Instagram, I'm gonna say the wrong thing. I think it's the.grace.project.pa, or the PA might be first, but we're on there too. And then obviously my personal pages, you can always reach out to me and I can get people connected.
Grace.
I was right the first time.
PA.
That's it. Yeah.
That's man, I feel like I got a 4.0.
I know. So smart.
So that's where everybody can reach out to you. So like we mentioned, Hungry for Hope, with a lot similar mission to what you do. Hungry for Hope, it was all built at my lowest point. It was all to give people who were hopeless hope. We use other people's story. I use my story. We bring on people like you just to keep on putting the spotlight. I feel like there's spotlight on so much bad in the world. We don't put the spotlight on these people. Like I was telling you, the greatest people are the people who went through battles that should have broke them, that has broken so many other people and made them out. What does hope mean to you, Meg?
Knowing that that things could get better. In a nutshell. Knowing things could get better.
Knowing things could get better.
Yeah.
That's simple. How long do you think it took to get to that point, though, where you realize,
Years. Years. At least, honestly, no, probably my whole life, because I think even growing up prior to drugs, I didn't, like I said, I struggled with depression and, mental health issues. So, yeah, years.
Years. It's simple.
26 of them.
And you're 20.
I don't
All
know,
right, makes sense.
27.
I'm doing the math over
Yeah.
here. So anything, before we get out of here, anything you want to leave anybody who's listening, anybody who may listen, anything you want to share with them, hope, strength, whatever?
No, just like I said, it's always possible to get out of like whatever it is that you're going through. No matter how dark it may seem, like there's always light in the world. There's people out there that care. I care, so whatever it is, like reach out, ask for help. There's no shame in it.
Awesome. Just want to thank you for all the stuff you're doing. Congratulations. Keep
you.
kicking ass. And everybody listening, thank you. Thank you so much. And Hunger for Hope Nation, we'll see you next Wednesday, 7 p.m.
Yeah.